Hey, David, you know what makes our show great?
What's that, Kevin?
No ads. You know what would make it better?
What's that, Kevin?
Ads.
What if, and I'm just spitballing here, we do ads for independent creators at reasonable rates?
How reasonable?
Overly. How about $2 per episode pre-roll?
That is almost too reasonable.
Might as well go for it. Let's send everyone to the contact page for Supernatural Selection.
SupernaturalSelectionPod.com/contact?
Exactly. Just have them scroll down to the Advertise With Us section for more information.
That sounds great. Now let's record the ad.
Kevin?
Yes, David?
We just did.
Whoa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Supernatural Selection. I'm your host, Kevin the Bastard. With me this week are Mike the Skeptic. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm fine, I guess.
Yeah? It's better than not being fine, I guess. And we have got Mr. David Davis. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Usually you expect me to have a bit, but I have no bits for you.
Nobody has a bit today, which is interesting, seeing the semi-seriousness of this topic. Let's see. So, again, we had a new patron last time. We still have that new patron, which is a plus. That is, of course, Andrew Richardson, host of Flag for Content. And he and I are both taking part in another podcast called Spooky Dice Bag. It is a D&D podcast, and I will have links to both of those in the notes that pop up when you click more information in your podcasting app. So that's exciting. And also, before we really get into everything, I got into contact today through synchronicity with Mississippi's only licensed hypnotherapist. So I may be paying a visit to them and finding out about my past lives.
That could be fun.
I'll be sure to report what happens. So do we have any shout-outs before we really get going? Anybody want to give a shout-out to somebody?
Yes, shout. Shout.
Let it all out.
Thank you. Okay, Tears for Fears. We love you, I guess. All right. Well, that was lame.
Wait, what was that? Tears for Fears?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Wait. Yes.
No.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes.
I'm glad we're getting into the very important questions immediately on this very, very important episode.
Yes. What's the meaning of life? Why do we suffer? And did Tears for Fears do shout? All right. So this week, after some delays and me having to reread Communion to make sure everything was fresh in my mind, we're going to talk about the one and only Mr. Whitley Strieber. Now, we're going to be talking mostly about his book Communion, which was a groundbreaking thing. And, David, I know you're familiar with him. Mike, you've soaked up some info over the years. What do you guys remember knowing before we really dove into this? Like, what was your public awareness of Mr. Strieber? Mike?
So I knew he had, hosted Art Bell's show.
Yes.
And I always got him confused with the Fire in the Sky guy.
You know what? That's not the first time I've heard that.
That's about it.
Okay.
Relatively same time period, right?
No, actually. Travis
Okay.
Walton was 1973 or 75, and Whitley was 85, so it's like a whole decade.
Fair enough. That's all ancient history to someone like me, so.
Yeah, well, there's people younger than you out there listening that are like, oh, the late 1900s, and now I'm going to open a vein. So,
Yeah, my experience with Strieber, I hadn't read Communion until recently, but I was aware of the book and mostly through that cover, which we'll probably talk about that at some point.
Yeah, no, that cover, man, I hope Eartha Kitt was getting residuals off that.
But yeah, like I had known a little bit about Strieber. I'd heard about him on Unsolved Mysteries, and what kicked the topic off for me, and you and I were, I don't know if you were already planning to tackle Communion, but I remember watching
I'd had the idea.
I remember watching a documentary like late last year about Whitley Strieber and Communion, and then I had brought it up to you, and you were like, yeah, I wanted to tackle that. So I'm trying to remember, like, the order of events here.
Well, I'd thought about doing it for a while because, I mean, come on, who hasn't made a joke about Whitley Strieber in their lives?
Me.
Yeah, that's, oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I regret it now.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to have to talk about here as we go through the episode, because this is going to get kind of, like, serious, with a capital S and everything like that,
because whether you believe he was abducted or not, something really affected this guy and nearly destroyed his life.
Yeah, and there's some jokes, the whole alien anal probing thing.
Yeah, because some people attribute that to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, but honestly, this is where it really happened.
Yeah.
So, that being said, let's dive into Mr. Whitley Strieber. Full name, Louis Whitley Strieber. He is an American author who, aside from today's topic, is best known as a horror author. Specifically, his most well-known works are the novels The Wolfen and The Hunger. Funnily enough, The Hunger stars David Bowie, so I'm kind of down to watch it.
I've seen it. It is a very, very horny movie.
Oh, wow. I'm kind of down for that. Mike, you want to watch it sometime?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, it's got David Bowie and Susan Sarandon, like, both in their prime.
Wow.
Yeah, like, they're, like, if you're even a little bit bisexual, like, the movie's going to work for you.
Look, I'm not going to lie. That bathtub scene in Batman v Superman had me going, so I'm down for this. Yeah. All right, so since the events chronicled in Communion, his career has taken an interesting turn. He works as a fiction author, of course, but he's also got a serious career as a paranormal nonfiction author. After his horror novels, Strieber became interested in ecology and the environment and started writing speculative fiction about ecological collapses and nuclear war. And he was actually, I don't know if you knew this, a consultant on the movie The Day After Tomorrow by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerichsen. So, that's a thing. As for these days, he's most closely associated with his website, Whitley Strieber's UnknownCountry.com. His online news magazine is principally used to share alternative news and paranormal analysis, and the founding editor was Anne Strieber, who unfortunately passed away in August of 2015. Now, in a recent episode of his show, he talked about watching Anne's spirit, when she died, ascend to heaven, which is the space between atoms, and escape the clutches of the Greys who were trying to steal it. So I don't think he's coping well.
Yeah.
So Anne was an author in her own right, known for her thrillers such as An Invisible Woman and Little Town Lies, and she was really instrumental to helping Strieber maintain and expand his career following the events we're about to discuss. So she was also a host of Dreamland along with Whitley, which was the flagship podcast of the Unknown Country website.
Which is still going strong, and I believe Dreamland was a spin-off of Coast to Coast, wasn't it?
It was sometimes hosted by Art Bell himself, and it's really dry. Actually, as a podcast, it's like us without the jokes.
Yeah, I tuned in for a couple episodes like this week, and I not the most compelling show. Like, I applaud what he's doing, but like I'm like, there needs to be more dick jokes.
He's yeah. Any paranormal podcast can be improved with dick jokes.
Yep.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the book Communion. Mike, you were there while I was reading this, and Mike, you can attest, this is kind of a rare book for us. It's well written and understandable. It's not only entertaining to read, it does an amazing job of relating the emotional impact of the events described. That being said, the book centers on two major events in his experiences.
So I really need to echo what you're saying here because the book is a very polished read. It's also intensely uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now, Mike, you remember my reactions to reading this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of the things I said was, thank God an author got abducted.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, the only way this could have been better is if Stephen King had been taken up into the ship.
God, could you imagine if Stephen King got abducted and what a great fucking book that would be?
I can imagine how it would have fucked up the Dark Tower series more.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, okay, hey, we saved him from getting run over by a van. Oh, get him away from that UFO. So the two incidents in the book, they're broken up into his conscious memories and by what he ends up bringing up during hypnotic regression. And what I've done is try to combine the two narratives as best I can. The first incident, though, takes place in October and is sort of chronologically the beginning of it all for his adult life.
Right. And, you know, speaking of the book, we do need to talk about the cover. So Ted Seth Jacob painted the cover for the first edition of the book, and it is still like the most iconic image of the Gray today. Probably the de facto image that comes to mind for most of us. If you're even a little bit interested in aliens and ufology, you would recognize this image.
Right. Mike, you are intimately familiar with that picture, I'm guessing.
I wouldn't say intimately.
But you know it on sight.
I do not know the image carnally.
Okay, no. I mean, that's for another episode of this show, because we're going to talk about Whitley and his fascination with that entity.
Yeah, and I think we're probably going to be Whitley Strieber revisited at least a couple of times.
We're going to talk about his other books. We're going to do one on the communion letters, and we're also going to just come back and talk about what has happened to him lately, because this guy is a whole can of worms, and I have a low tolerance for a certain amount of worms in one sitting.
Yeah, so that's the thing. A lot of this podcasting process for us has been like very much kind of like a discovery thing where, you know, like in the process of going through the script this week, I stumbled onto like 2 or 3 other episode topics.
Yes. Now, before we charge into the events, Mike, I have a question. I really want to get this out there. For you. Now, I know you don't believe in the whole alien abduction phenomenon, but like, as far as people that are experiencing like genuine trauma from something like this, you do agree that they at least believe something has happened to them, right?
I mean,
they think something has happened.
There's plenty of people that truly believe things happen to them that hasn't actually happened to them.
Right. Okay, I just want to get that out there because, like, you know, you're the skeptic, and that's fine, and you're here to balance us out. And I just wanted to get that out there, though, that these people have been through something emotional,
caused by their own self.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to pipe in here because, like, as I went through the document, I also put in a lot of like things that's more on Mike's side of.
Absolutely, because I am going whole hog into this thing and letting y'all pull me back. So, so the first event on October 4th, 1985, Strieber, his wife Anne, their son Andrew, and 2 close friends of the family, Jacques Sangelescu and Annie Gottlieb, headed out to the Strieber's cabin in the middle of bumfuck Egypt in upstate New York near Winchester. You know, near the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
Oh, you said Winchester. It's Westchester, right?
Did I say Winchester?
Yeah, you said Winchester.
Oh my God, I've got Supernatural on the brain. Westchester. It's those muffiny abs. But no, Westchester out near the X-Men school. Yes. Now, after dinner at a local restaurant, I originally said fun dinner, and then I heard the hypnotic regression. And apparently, Jacques was a massive pain in the ass. So
you get that impression from the not that Jacques seems like a bad dude, but he is definitely like larger than life.
He's definitely large, Russian, and opinionated about his food. So, after dinner, the group headed back to the cabin. Now, the original plan was for the 4 adults to spend time in the hot tub. You know, whatever they get up to in their own time, that's your thing. But when they get back to the cabin, everyone felt extremely tired, more than they could really explain from a normal meal. So everyone went to bed.
So it was probably a carb-heavy meal, probably a nice lasagna.
I'm thinking it was either lasagna or maybe like some pierogies.
A nice spaghetti.
God damn it. So, all right, sometime around 3 a.m., Whitley was woken up by a light coming through the second-story window in the front room. Now, his bedroom is on the second floor, and with the door open, they can see the cathedral ceiling, and he has a round window at the second-floor level. Now, the light was coming from above. Now, his immediate reaction was that the roof had somehow caught on fire from embers drifting up from the fireplace. But he soon realized that the light was blue, extremely bright, and piercing, not diffused at all. Now, from here on out, we go to the recalled information from hypnosis.
Now you're going to have questions about the validity of these recollections, and we're going to address them later on, as there are some significant red flags in Strieber's account.
Absolutely, and Strieber kind of questions the validity of it himself as well. But at this point, Whitley sees a shape standing in the corner of his room by the chest of drawers. It's about 3 feet tall and is staring at him. He finds himself terrified and unable to move. The entity is wearing a dark blue jumpsuit with a hood that hides its face. In a sudden rush, the entity is beside his bed. He looks up into the hood to see a being with seemingly no hair and large, dark eyes, and a wide mouth. It takes out a wand of some form, and that's in quotes, and places it against Whitley's head. Around the pituitary gland, actually. And his mind is flooded with images of the earth exploding, his son being dead in the garden, and his father choking to death as his mother watches sadly. And he is highly upset by all of this.
Now, this is the weirdest advertisement I have ever heard for a personal massaging wand.
I would take that back to Brookstone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is not the Adam and Eve special you were looking for.
Yes.
Now, something that just dawned on me here, that the nature of the wand, because now I'm, again, always something that relates back to Hellier for me, because the wand is something that is seen in a few of those cases that they talk about in the West Virginia area.
Yes, and one of the things they talk about is in the book is its possible relation to fairy folklore, because the other beings always have a wand. Now, this looks a little more sci-fi, high-tech, like crystal and silver or crystal and metal kind of thing. But it's interesting that a wand is involved. Now, after showing these visions, the entity holds a small silver needle-like device over Whitley's face, and he strikes it, and there is a loud pop right in front of his face. And at this point, we return to what we're going to call subjective reality.
Now, I haven't been through hypnosis or anything like that, but this sounds... Right, so this sounds like how one can break someone free from hypnosis. Based on some reading from some sources that I was looking at, percussive awakening is a thing, like clapping and snapping of fingers, and this feels like an extension of that, like a disoriented mind's understanding of such a technique at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us are familiar with the whole trope of, and when I snap your fingers, you'll be a chicken. Exactly. All right. Now, at the time the pop happens, everyone in the house wakes up from the noise, and Whitley's son starts screaming. Now, remembering his earlier thought about the roof being on fire, he curses himself about falling back asleep, yells for his wife to get out of the house with the guests, and he runs to grab their son. Now, coming down the stairs, he sees the cabin is dark, it is not on fire, and decides he's going to go calm his son. So he yells that everything's fine, the roof is not on fire, everybody go back to bed. The next day, no one discusses the night before or even mentions it.
We don't talk about Dad's house burning dream.
Yeah, Mike thought so.
The talking heads did.
They did. They did talk about burning down the house. So, thoughts on this so far?
Yeah, we're diving well into the 80s in our musical jokes.
Yeah, well, it's appropriate. 85. The song was a going concern. Now, in the aftermath of this, Whitley becomes paranoid and can't put his finger on why about the cabin. Now, he's already got a security system installed since they're not out there all the time. But he goes out and he buys a shotgun. He sits there at night, sometimes just waiting for the security lights outside, the floodlights to turn on. And before bed, after his wife and kid are asleep, he double checks the locks and looks in all the closets and under the beds with his gun. And he does all this without letting on to his wife and child. Now, at this point, Whitley and Ann start having relationship problems due to the shift in his personality and his paranoia and his anger. Now, by Christmas, things begin to get better for them.
Now this is like the hardest part of the book for me. The animosity between them during this time is like super intense, and the writing really goes a long way to really convey just how bad things are. Like, there's a lot of fucked up stuff that happens in this book, but the dissolving of their relationship is what fucked me up the most. It's just incredibly painful.
I know, and I really applaud him for putting that in there, because like he could have just not. And it's come out that during this time he became like a raging alcoholic, just downing Jack Daniels, trying to cope with this.
So you know, the thing that I'm seeing here, number one, like how traumatic that initial event was.
Right.
And like, again, like I'm trying to put myself in that situation, and like, I get it. I would hope that I wouldn't kind of spiral like he did, but I understand why it happened. Right.
It's, no pun intended, very alienating. Like, have you ever been through anything even remotely like that?
I haven't, but like I could see myself going this route. So a lot of this is like a lot of this is kind of has me concerned, because I'm like, I see a little bit of my like Whitley Strieber in myself.
Sure.
You know, because he's the horror author, you know, he's a creative individual, he's susceptible to certain things, and I'm just like,
right,
fuck, there goes me, but for the grace of Xenu, right?
Yeah.
So.
Mike, have you ever had anything like this, where like something happened and you sort of push people away or like become more agitated?
I mean, I guess everybody does to some point. I mean, it's just, I think it comes down to an inability to process.
Right.
And so your everyday stuff just really annoys you.
Yeah.
Like,
you know,
just
yeah.
Typical problems, or even not even problems, just like if, say, people aren't as concerned about it as you, they're just going about their daily lives. You're like, you should be worried about this.
Yeah. Well, like, it makes me think about our friend that we just lost, Paul, and not in the fact that it's doing that to us, but like, I feel like this happened to him. So,
I mean, yeah,
I get it. It's a sense of being other from reality.
And not only just that, it's so something I've been thinking about lately a lot in, things like this, it's really comes down kind of to pain. Cognitive dissonance really causes a lot of distress and
Right.
pain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Excuse me.
pain, I mean, mental pain is still pain. In fact,
Oh, right.
it can be scientifically proven because painkillers numb mental distress as well as physical discomfort.
Totally. I can tell you that
Like,
from the amount of Aleve I down sometimes.
So it's, and alcohol helps with that.
yes, it does. It's self-medication.
A lot of people
but-
say, how can you drink alcohol? It's a depressant. Well, it's a depressant, but it's more of a suppressant.
It really reminds me of that line from 2.5 Men, guys. That whole, why are you drinking alcohol? Because I want to. You told me it was poison. There are things inside me I need to kill.
Well, I mean, but it does numb you.
Definitely.
Both physically and emotionally.
Not necessarily in a good way all the time.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and but in the same way that painkillers,
It's a
can
relief.
be abused.
Yeah.
Because they both provide a relief in that you're not really so much addicted to the substance, you're addicted to the relief it brings.
Right, and then there's this probably the scariest part of this for Whitley, and this is me making assumptions. Like I'm not a father, at least that I know of.
Right.
But like having that very vivid experience, waking up in complete disarray and confusion, and then hearing your child scream.
Oh, he talks a lot about his paternal instincts in this book, and that is
it's one of those like ultimate sort of for a person who's a father, for a person who's a parent, just in general. The minute like this experience fucks with your kid, it's a spiral thing, because again, like we're as a species, we're kind of like hardwired to prioritize the health and safety of the children, and I feel like a lot of what's going on here is and I saw this in the book, is just this feeling of inadequacy and inability to protect his child.
that sense of helplessness.
I was gonna say, something that you don't understand. You can't protect anyone from something you don't understand.
Exactly. And we're about to get into the most hardcore part of this whole thing. So guys, buckle up. This is the day after Christmas in 1985, December 26th. That night it was actually a good one starting out. At first. After a small meal of leftover goose and generally enjoying family activities, the Striebers decide to go to bed.
See, I want to stop you there, though. You kind of put like a slight pause there, so I saw it was a meal of leftover goo.
Oh, God. Goo.
Well, okay, who the fuck eats Christmas goose in the 20th century? That's Dickensian.
Man, it's upstate New York. He's an author.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's they're fairly, I would assume, staunchly upper middle class.
Oh, yeah, no, they have an apartment in New York City.
And they're
You
in
have
the
two properties. Fuck.
they're
I mean,
they're in the Northeast. They're
Westchester.
his wife, as
They're
much
waspy as fuck.
I was going to say, as much as I love Ann Strieber, she's a wasp.
Yeah.
Actually, I say that, but they're Catholic.
Well, okay, but still.
But there's still that general, fucking property in New York and New York State. Fuck.
Has anyone ever eaten goose here?
Yeah, it's not bad, actually.
don't think I've ever had goose.
I mean, it's more gamey than, it's a little bit like duck.
Now, I love duck, so
Okay,
now
you'll
I'm
love
intrigued.
goose. Yeah.
duck.
all right.
Duck, goose.
Oh! All right, so the Striebers go to bed. Well, let's get back to the horrible stuff. Anne and Andrew go to bed, which means out come the shotgun.
Fuck.
Whitley makes his rounds after everyone's asleep, and he double-checks the alarm. And with everything seemingly in order, he finally turns in himself. Now, what follows is disturbing. Not because it recounts an alien abduction. We've done that. But because of how much of this is from Whitley's conscious memories. Waking up the next morning remembering chunks of this. The hypnosis brought out more details. So, that being said, buckle your seatbelts, boys.
I'm already buckled in. You told me buckle in once. You can't keep telling me to buckle in.
Put on the shoulder strap, because this is about to get rough.
Put him in the car seat. Put him in the car seat.
Okay, I'll put him in the car seat. Mike, do you want your sippy cup?
I'm not getting in the car seat. I'm too fat.
Would you like a sippy cup of rum?
I already have that over here.
All right. Okay. Now, the first thing Whitley became aware of was the sound of someone moving around downstairs. The alarm is still set and glowing softly next to his door, and nothing has set it off. The lights outside are still turned off. Nonetheless, someone, lots of someones, are moving around downstairs.
Now, this is extremely fucking scary given the previous situation and the already present gun-toting paranoia.
I know. This is something he's been terrified of in the back of his head.
And it's fucking happening.
Right. So Whitley sits up, but he can't move. He doesn't know if he's too frightened or just incapable, but he can move his eyes, and Anne is still fast asleep next to him. And he looks to the cracked bedroom door, and he sees something that is completely beyond his ability to really understand, because peeking around the door is a small creature. Again, about 3 feet tall. But it's wearing a metal faceplate with round black eyes and an O for a mouth. And it seems to have some kind of metal chest plate with a triangle on it. And he can't stop looking at it.
It sounds like a Shy Guy from the Super Mario games.
God damn it.
It does.
Now, the thing is, you remember the movie, David?
Mm-hmm.
This is represented by the weird clockwork toy that runs up to him in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Oh, speaking of which, if you want to hear Kevin and I talk about the movie adaptation of the novel, you should join the Patreon.
Fuck yeah, man. We talk a lot about cocaine.
Yes, we do.
Mike, I'm going to make you watch that one day.
Okay.
All right. So when the Thing realizes that Whitley doesn't have the shotgun, it again rushes to his side.
Ugh.
And then more creatures come in. I mean, it's more of the creatures from October 4th, but at this point he doesn't remember them. And there's a lot of them. Like, his estimate is maybe a dozen. And they lift him from the bed, strip his clothes off, and then carry him out into the woods on their hands over their heads.
Now, are we sure he didn't pledge to a fraternity?
Yeah, it was Kappa Beta Fuck. So, the next thing Whitley is aware of is being sat down in a hole in the snow, a hole in the ground where the snow has been melted, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, someone's moving around to his side that he can't see because they're just out of the range of his peripheral vision and where he can turn his eyes. And someone is in front of him. And he can't quite make it out clearly because even in his regressed memories, he has trouble recalling the face. And they're telling him something that to this very day, he won't remember. Now, suddenly he finds himself spiraling and seeing the forest above him, spinning, and then a floor closes underneath him. He's placed on a bench in a room that he describes as dirty. Like, it smells like BO, and there is discarded clothing everywhere. Like, you remember the Hitchhiker's Guide when Arthur and Ford are in the Dentrassi's quarters and it's just like mattresses and dirty clothes everywhere?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like that.
It's a very weird fucking vibe for a UFO encounter, a visitor encounter.
It really is. It's not sterile, which is unique. Now, he's placed on a bench and in front of him is a being. And it's the same being that had been explaining whatever it was to him. And he makes a point that the creature seems female. And at this point, it is the entity depicted on the cover of Communion. This is his first experience with what we could consider a gray.
So this is our cover girl.
This is cover girl, yes.
Okay.
Now, for some reason, he gets the impression that she's old. And he asks her, "Are you old?" And she says, "Yes, I am very old."
She has an AARP membership.
Yeah, those come out to everybody everywhere in the fucking galaxy.
Maybe it was Dame Judi Dench.
Oh my god, that would be kind of fun though. We could play D&D.
Right?
So she tells Whitley, and I want you to put yourself in this situation for a second, that this weird ass shit's happened and you've been sucked up into what might be a UFO. She tells Whitley they're going to perform brain surgery on him and that it won't hurt.
Fuck.
At this point, he panics. He is completely unaware of what he's doing, but he keeps having these visions of his wife and son finding him in bed as a vegetable the next morning. Apparently, he'd been screaming, "You're going to destroy a beautiful mind."
Which, like, it's... On the one hand, it seems kind of, like, arrogant, but on the other hand, not necessarily. It's a very curious thing.
I see it as pleading, like, please,
Yeah.
like, God, my brain's beautiful, don't kill it.
Yeah, I'm a unique individual. I think that's what he was going for. But then also, he is an author. So maybe he's... Again, I'm not quite sure how to read that, but I feel like it's more like, I'm a living thing. I'm a unique entity.
No, not my brain.
Thank you for that, Mike. I needed that. So the next exchange is odd. They really kind of gloss it over in the movie, but it's kind of odd. But the first thing is the entity asks Whitley, "What can we do to get you to stop screaming?" Fair question.
Right?
Drugs.
Yeah, was he screaming the entire time?
Yes. Like, after she said the brain surgery, just constant screaming.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would too.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Now, the second strange thing is his response. "Can you let me smell you?"
Oh, he's one of those guys.
Now, while this is bizarre, it kind of makes sense. Whitley needed to know that what he was experiencing was real because he thought maybe he was losing his mind. I'm not saying he wasn't. And the one thing he could think of was smell, because smell impacts memory. So,
Also, it could be like, have you ever smelled anything in your dream? I don't think I have.
I have never smelled anything in my dream.
So, I mean, I read that, like, I forget what I was reading or something, where someone was trying to figure out if they were dreaming or not, and they smelled something.
Right.
And they could smell it, so they were like, well, I'm not in a dream.
Yeah.
And so that made me think, I was like, you're right. That probably would work. Because, I mean, the reading thing I don't buy, because I've read shit.
Yeah, no, it's Batman the Animated Series. That could be just bullshit. But
the smell thing does make kind of sense. Smell and taste. I've never tasted anything in a dream.
Yeah.
Well,
so
now, is that how smelling salts work? Because I've never had to use those, but is that the principle behind this idea of, like,
wakes
having
up that section of your brain and kicks you back into consciousness?
Interesting.
Yeah. So after this somewhat bizarre request, the being very gently places its cheek against his face, and he inhales deeply. And it smells of cinnamon and what I'm just going to summarize as flesh, all the things you associate with the natural smell of a living being. It smells like some form of an entity and cinnamon. The entity cradles his head, and other creatures come up and hold him and calm him. Then there's a tap on the back of his head, a bright flash in his eyes, and a pop sound, and he realizes they just did the operation.
Oh, so it's like, when you have a little child and you got to give them a shot,
Yes.
Distract them with something shiny and cool, and then jab them.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Or like taking an animal to the vet.
He describes his treatment as, while not inhumane, it is very reminiscent of treating an animal.
Right. And then, the smelling thing is just such a weird detail that it kind of makes sense, but it's also a great example of like weird ass dream logic. If you're building the case that this was like a very, very, very like powerful dream.
And we will talk, I didn't put it in the outline, but we are going to talk a little bit about hypnagogia later, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now what comes next is from the hypnosis session. Because after this, it kind of glosses over. He's taken from the holding area into another room full of grays and the little worker men that came to get him. And it reminds him of one of those old school operating theaters from the old days. The big round one with the stadium seating where they would do an operation in the center and all the doctors would watch to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also a big-ass praying mantis.
Now, was this mantis smoking a cigarette in the corner and going, yes, yes?
I just imagine it is sitting in the cuck chair from a hotel. Because I really feel like this is the origin of the mantis cuck. We're in the thick of it.
We need to update our bingo card with a variation that has cuckoldry in one of the squares.
Yeah.
That comes up a lot.
Mantis cuck comes up a hell of a lot. So he's brought into this room where everyone's watching. He's placed on a table and put in sort of like the position like you're at the gynecologist in the stirrups.
Mm.
And then something's brought out. And it looks like a metallic snake with some form of mesh net at the end. And the description honestly sounds like the microphone right in front of my face.
Now,
we know where this is going.
Now, gentlemen, do you remember the show The Venture Brothers?
Yes.
Do you remember The Nozzle?
I do not remember The Nozzle.
Look up the clip on YouTube and you'll immediately get the reference. But the minute I read this, I thought, The Nozzle. Do not look at the nozzle.
Now, Mike, you said you know where this is going.
I said, I have an idea where this is going.
Yes. Well, that's when it happens. This is it. This is the birth of 1,000 memes and 10,000 jokes. In the context of the book, though, and related to us by the man who experiences it, it loses all humor. The snake thing was inserted into his anus. And at this point, Whitley finally felt something other than fear. Anger. And at some point, during his screaming in anger, the object is removed, but he doesn't remember when. The female, as we're going to call her, asks him, "Is this as hard as you can get?" And Whitley's confused by this. And then he looks down and sees that his penis is at half-mast. He's horrified that it would even be at this state and tells him, "No, not with you here. You're ugly."
I feel like I'm on the wrong side of X Hamster again.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not go to Motherless. That's all I'm saying. Something is then placed behind his ear and then against his earlobe, and something is inserted. We'll come back to that in another episode because it doesn't really play out that much. He is then led into another room, and no amount of hypnosis or concentration has brought out what happened in that third room.
Now this is scary because of the abject horror he's experienced up until this point, which begs the question, just how much worse could that locked away memory be?
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah?
What do you think? What do you think happened in the third room?
Part cheesy.
You know what? I for his sake, I fucking hope so. And it was
Right?
just boring. Because this is already pretty fucking hardcore for a dude that didn't believe in UFOs before this. That's the other thing. He was a hardcore skeptic on this stuff. Mm-hmm. He was like, you talk about UFOs, he's like, that's bullshit. So, after being taken to the third room and the memory gap, the next thing he knows, he's standing in his bedroom and the entities leave through the door. He gets dressed, visits the bathroom calmly, and then goes back to sleep. Now, unlike the October 4th version of what happened, the following day he develops fevers, chills, a bleeding anus, and severe fatigue. Now, after returning to their New York City apartment, he visits his doctor, and the doctor asks him, Whitley, I don't know how to broach this subject, but were you raped? Because you have massive trauma in your rectum.
Now this is awful, but it's only going to get a different kind of worse from here.
Yeah. So we have some physical evidence that something happened. Not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. So Strieber's memories of December 26th haunted him. It was like after October 4th, but all over again and worse. He was distant. He was angry. He was violent. He could write the historical fiction novel he'd been working on. He began drinking more. He couldn't read for entertainment. He was just standoffish to everyone.
So this behavior lines up with rape trauma syndrome. I don't want to dwell on this too much because it is a potentially triggering thing, but in the case of sexual assault victims, post-traumatic stress results in a number of symptoms which align with his response over the coming months in the book, especially with corresponding stages. Again, don't want to dwell too much on this because it's a topic that might make some listeners uncomfortable, but if you look in the show notes, I do have a very detailed source in the outline that lays all of this out.
Yeah, look for the hyperlink.
Yeah.
And I understand. I know someone that has issues with their rectum, and these are the same symptoms they get, is the fatigue, the tiredness, the fevers, the chills, all that stuff. Not to put too fine a point on it, something happened with this man's butthole.
Yeah, it's, again, like, there
I
were
don't
a
wanna
lot of
I don't wanna
jokes
make the
and
joke.
humor that came out of this, but like when you put it in the context of actually reading it and the trauma that he conveys, it's a harrowing thing.
Right. And after this, sitting in his office, he has the thought that what he experienced could possibly be alien abduction because Betty and Barney Hill were vaguely in the public consciousness. He says he remembered hearing something reading something in a magazine about a Betty or something that got abducted. Or he's losing his mind. He finds himself staring out the window and realizing that he would rather push it open and leap the 12 stories to the pavement than accept what is happening to him. Mm-hmm. But realizing that what that would do to his family, and realizing that if he didn't do something, he might not resist the urge next time, he did some digging and discovered missing time expert Bud Hopkins.
And we're just going to take a brief tangent here because Bud Hopkins is a figure that we're going to have to cover in more depth.
Agreed. Now, Mike, I don't know if you remember the name Bud Hopkins other than from me, but he used to be on like, what was that show on Fox we always watched that came on before the X-Files? Sightings. He was always on Sightings and Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, for me it was Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was always on there. He's a guy that everybody came to.
So, Bud Hopkins is an interesting figure in all of this.
Right.
He was already prominent in the ufology field and was born in West Virginia, which is a state we've mentioned many times here on the show. All the weird shit happens in West Virginia.
Yeah, can we just rename the whole fucking state Hellmouth?
Right? We should probably just do like a West Virginia tribute episode. It's crazy.
I feel
man.
like we should make a field trip and do that as well.
Yeah, like my goal, one of the states I want to visit is West Virginia because that's where all the weirdos are. And
Later
I mean that
we'll
in the most loving way possible.
Oh, absolutely. And one of these days I will tell y'all about me and Mike's plan to basically build a traveling podcast studio and basically Scooby-Doo this shit.
Do a fucking RV, man.
That's what we're talking about.
Hell yeah. So, Bud Hopkins was an artist who had an impressive background in painting, even landing a Guggenheim Fellowship.
He's actually really good. If you look up his stuff, he's very talented.
So, Hopkins would publish his own book regarding an abduction experience called Missing Time in 1981, which would throw him headfirst into the contactee sphere. Prior to this, he was mostly a painter, art critic, and journalist.
Yes.
Now, this experience, much like Strieber's, would radically alter the trajectory of his life, and he would end up consulting on many contactee experiences. Now, I also want to note that, like Strieber, he did not appear to be predisposed to any ufology beliefs because of the trauma of the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast by Orson Welles. He's gone on record several times about psychic scars left by the broadcast that would ultimately give him a skeptical bent. He didn't want anything to do with aliens and UFOs.
Now, we will talk more about we will talk more about Bud Hopkins in a future episode. There's some stuff I discovered lately that's interesting about him, but we'll get into that another day. So, Strieber contacts Bud, and they met the same day because, David, I don't know if you remember this, and I think this is, it's New York, but they live 2 blocks from
It's New York.
Hey, they live 2 blocks from each other. Literally, they actually live 2 blocks away from each other.
They probably both also lived above delis.
Oh my God! You know what? I have a feeling if we lived above a deli, we'd be dead.
Or maybe a bodega.
Ooh, a bodega. That'd be badass.
Oh, that's the dream, man. That's the dream.
Yeah, man. Just live over a bodega.
When I stayed in New York, our Airbnb was above a ramen shop.
Oh, you fucker.
Shit.
God, you lived the dream for a little bit, man.
2 days.
Oh, 2 days of heaven. So
Subways.
And Subways. I love that urine smell.
That didn't smell that bad. It smelled mostly like
disinfectant.
More kind of gunpowdery. Remember how Kevin, you remember the Atlanta subway?
Yeah, no, it did smell of gunpowder.
I think it's all the ground steel from the train wheels.
Yeah, it smells like the discharge of metal against metal, like in a gunshot.
Or like welding.
Yeah, it smelled like arc welding. So, anyway, the hypnosis. They met the same day, and Whitley, after telling him what happened, Bud suggests he goes into hypnotic regression to pull those memories out. Because, of course, he does. That's his thing. Now, Whitley said he wanted to find his own hypnotist to do the sessions. It's not that he didn't want to trust Bud, but he wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any leading questions. So he went with a very noted hypnotist, one of the leaders in the field that was, of course, in New York. Because New York. I don't have the gentleman's name, but what follows is audio of that hypnosis session. And boys, this is this is rough. Let me know if you can hear it okay, all right?
I saw something that looked like it had a hood on it. Standing over by the wall near the corner in our bedroom. And I don't want it to be there. I don't want it to be there. Please. Darling. You can only do it to me. For Christ's sake. No. Dad.
All right. That is the regression of the October 4th incident. Everybody okay after that?
Haha, no.
Okay, Mike?
I mean, bringing me down, man.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty fucking hardcore, dude.
Like, I've heard some pretty fucked up things. Like, I've listened to, like, black box recordings and that sort of thing, because I'm a horrible troll of a person. But, you know, because my thing is watching, like, my creepy YouTube channels of, like, most shocking found footage from Ring doorbell cameras before I go to bed and stuff.
Yeah, Dark 5.
This one disturbs me. Like, a lot of them don't really get to me, but, like, you feel the pain of what he feels like he's experiencing.
That's just the sound of abject terror. It shakes me every time I hear it, and I never want to listen to it again.
He could be a metal singer, though.
Oh, God, yeah, no, he's got some fucking range when he's terrified. Now, I've listened to the Barney Hill regression tapes, and
that's another fucked up one, man.
Yeah, this one is worse in a lot of ways. And the thing is, you remember that documentary you were talking about earlier, the one Whitley did? All right, so they give him these tapes, and they ask him, do you want to listen? And he starts listening, and it gets to that part, and he stops, and he's like, I can never hear this again.
It almost reminds me of Grizzly Man with...
Herzog.
Herzog just like listening to you don't get to listen to the audio, you just get to see...
you see his reaction going, you must destroy these tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is where the complete picture comes in of his experiences. And he goes through this 2 or 3 more times to get the full picture. And also, it's so traumatic during this, you don't hear about this happening often. In fact, the hypnotist says this is extremely rare. Whitley comes out of the fucking trance spontaneously, so terrified at times.
Jesus.
Imagine being so scared you wake yourself up from hypnosis. I've read other accounts from like the Van Driesen affair, and that shit doesn't normally happen. So after this, Whitley is encouraged to go back and ask his house guests, not did anything weird happen, but like, hey, you remember anything weird about October 4th? Like, do you remember what happened October 4th that night?
You mean aside from him wandering around the house with a gun in a paranoid state while claiming the house was on fire?
Okay, fair. But prior to that.
Yeah, exactly.
So he talks to Jacques, and Jacques says that when he woke up from the pop, there was a bright light coming in the windows. In fact, it was so bright, he thought they'd slept till around 10 a.m. And then the light just turned off. It just went out, and then he hears Whitley yelling that the house isn't on fire, so go back to bed. And Jacques, being the big Russian bear that he is, does. It's winter.
Yeah, hibernating.
Yeah. Now, Annie Gottlieb, Jacques' girlfriend, says that she woke up because of the pop as well. And then she heard the sound of a bunch of feet running around in the Strieber bedroom above them, and she assumed it was the cats. Now, the chilling part, to me, is when Whitley says, the cats are still in New York. We don't take them to the cabin. She says she remembers him yelling about the house not being on fire, but for some reason she had a weird memory about a giant diamond hovering over the house.
Now, I'm just hearing the movie version of this with the dramatic slow read of, like, the cats are in New York combined with that orchestral string hit. Just
Now, can we... Okay, you do the string hit after I do this voice, all right? But Annie, the cats are in New York.
You son of a bitch, you went walking with it.
Yeah, because you said from the movie.
No, I was thinking like a different movie. Like,
wow.
A not walking movie, but yeah.
Okay, but Annie, the cats are in New York. We don't bring them out here to the cabin. 5 guys in my mouth. So, Mike, you got anything to add to that before I move on, since I just broke David?
Nope.
Okay. So, at Bud's request, Whitley is encouraged to talk to his son about this, but he says, don't ask him about memories. That's not how you do this with kids. Ask him if he had any dreams from that time period. Mm-hmm. So Walken goes to Andy, and he sits down and is like, hey, you remember the last time Jacques came out to the cabin with us? And he's like, yeah, no, it was great. I love Jacques. It was a fun time. He said, you have any dreams? Yeah, I had a dream me and one of his friends were in a boat, but dream stopped because these little blue doctors took me to be examined, and they took me out on the porch, and then I woke up yelling because I was scared. And that's when Whitley Strieber broke into a cold sweat.
He was sweating bullets.
Because something happened that affected everyone in that house.
Now, this is one of the few cases I can recall involving a child. I don't know of many encounters or visitations involving children.
I haven't heard any where the kids remember it. It's always they're in hypnotic regression and then spontaneously remember stuff from childhood. And that happens to Strieber, but we'll talk about that in like a more biographical episode. Mm-hmm. Because I don't feel like it directly relates to the main thrust of Communion. I wish I hadn't said thrust.
Well,
yeah. So, again, Strieber was really careful about his questioning. He never hinted that he thought he'd seen aliens or was abducted or was losing his mind to anyone. Not even his wife. But eventually, talking to her, he got her to go under hypnotic regression. And Annie's regression is an extremely, I'm going to just go ahead and say chilling again, part of this. Mm-hmm. On the night of the 26th, Anne Strieber remembers waking up and Whitley wasn't in bed. But that didn't bother her because he disappeared in the middle of the night so often. Mm-hmm. She knew he'd be back, and they had told her to just stay in bed and wait. Now, in the regression, when the hypnotist asked, who are they? She would not answer. She just had to wait and help Whitley when he came back. She was jealous that she had to wait while him and her son left, and that it happened often.
It's a really like fucked up thing. Like just like reading that, when I read that like got to me.
Yeah, the fact that, like, you know, your typical abduction, there's not a lot of corroborating evidence. This gets freaky to me.
Yeah, and just the implication that, like, you know, this happened often.
And the just the confirmation. Can you imagine being like, well, maybe I am going crazy. Even with hypnosis, maybe I'm going crazy, and then all this other stuff. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The aftermath of this. To say that Strieber's life was changed by this would really be an understatement. I mean, being an author, he decided to chronicle the experience. And Anne began working with him on this after both their regressions. Mm-hmm. Because when she found out that this had happened and he might have been abducted by aliens, her comment was, oh, thank God we don't have to get a divorce.
Fuck.
Which I thought was great. Mm-hmm. Now, Anne gave him the title Communion because she felt that this was an almost religious experience and it would make sense to him eventually. Now, for years, Strieber has spoken about his visitors, who he still does not say are aliens. He still doesn't know what they are, or where they came from, or what they actually want.
Now, from what I've gathered, Strieber is still a very devout Catholic. So it's interesting to see how he's able to kind of maintain that belief system and incorporate these experiences into it. It's sort of like a New Age kind of fusion thing going on.
I know, it's like one of those weird restaurants. It opens up in New York. It's a New Age fusion restaurant. So the publication of Communion obviously kind of shook the world of ufology. There have been these reports before, but this was a big one. Many people who had remained silent but remembered having nocturnal visitations saw the iconic cover and felt compelled to finally talk about what they had experienced. Others saw the cover and had memories leap forward that they'd repressed, and the phenomenon of abduction suddenly came to the forefront, and there it has remained for good or ill. So that's where we're at with Whitley Strieber right now, and I am curious to hear your thoughts. Now, Mike, what have you got?
See, here's a problem. A problem I have with this whole presentation.
Right.
You've made it the gravity so great that I can't really poke holes at it without sounding like an asshole.
Sure you can.
No,
Yeah.
because you
David's
just
gonna
said
do it, I'm sure.
You said, this is traumatic and he's really gone through it, and I can't say no, he didn't go through it.
Well,
So, I mean, the way you've laid it out, it's either he's completely lying or he actually had this otherworldly experience. There's really no middle ground.
there.
No,
No,
there's not. I mean, you've laid it on pretty thick here.
No, well, Mike, I got your back here. I got your back here because I have some stuff that I'm going to bring up here. A couple of things. But, I see where you're coming from because, again, something happened.
I laid it on thick, and I do apologize if it was...
I'm just saying that what am I supposed to say?
Tell me I'm wrong.
How can I say you're wrong without, saying, Whitley Strieber is lying about everything?
Well, the thing is one of the implications is that okay, he felt like he went through something, and whatever he felt he went through definitely fucked him up, and we can feel bad for him for having that, whatever that experience was that he's convinced himself he's had, fucking him up. We could feel bad about that, but we can also acknowledge that there's probably a lot of explanations for all of this.
But that doesn't, take into account his son and wife's, corroboration.
He
That is a tough one, but we are talking about a book from one person's point of view.
Now, in the book, he says he goes to great lengths not to let stuff slip or try to he picks his hypnotist. He says he doesn't talk about the stuff, but considering how dark things get for him, I feel like things would have slipped.
Right, and I am not anywhere beyond thinking this man was walking around mumbling under his breath in what he thinks is a whisper.
Yeah, but how's that explain his wife and child's profound,
Well,
the experiences?
Well,
so either he cowed them into lying or somehow influenced them to lie.
which not necessarily lie, but
lie. I mean, they said, she said, he was gone and they told me to wait. So either, he somehow made her think, she had these experiences too.
So that's the interesting thing about memory here, because people can convince themselves of something or be influenced, and it's not necessarily malicious. It's just you feel like this is a thing that happened, and you feel like you've lived it, and for your own experiences, it's become a fundamental part of you. So I want to bring up a couple of things because I think this is going to kind of help address the issue going on here.
Right. And one of the other things that they talked about in the book is you can lie under hypnosis.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was going to say that too. I mean,
yeah.
hypnosis is not a truth-telling
Oh, no.
thing.
And it's fallible.
And it's, debatable exactly what happens under hypnosis, whether you actually remember real memories or not.
Oh, yeah. No, that shit is not admissible in court.
Like, again, to mention Hellier, the whole hypnosis used to induce an alien contactee situation. Again, like, that wasn't... we see he isn't picked up by aliens at all, but it becomes an indelible part of his psychic experience, I guess, that it is a thing that he is convinced has happened to him. Right. So... yeah, so there's two things I want to bring up, because as much as I find communion to be fascinating, I do have my criticisms.
Right.
So one theory I wanted to discuss, and I wanted to bring this up earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt your storytelling, Kevin, because I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. I'm really proud of the writing on this one.
So there's this theory that Strieber had undergone something known as hypnagogia.
Yeah, like a hypnagogic state, basically, where you're awake but dreaming. So from what I can tell, the first author to put this idea out there, because again, Communion was a huge book. The first person I could think who put that out there was neurologist Stephen Novella. Is it funny that he wrote a book and his name is Novella?
Right. Specifically, the description of the paralyzed state on the December encounter stood out to me. And this is actually a pretty common neurological phenomenon. Like, I guarantee you, if we were to ask around, like, we would know at least a handful of people who have had similar kind of hypnagogic episodes.
That's just, what's that thing? Sleep paralysis.
Yes.
Had that before myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So
it's just that combined with waking dreams.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I'm going to quote... Oh, yes.
I was going to say, I can tell you that whatever happens when you have sleep paralysis seems extra real.
Yeah.
Which, it's... Yeah.
Our coworker, the Skinwalker, has experienced something very similar. He thought the Hat Man was coming to get him.
The Hat Man?
The Hat Man.
I am not aware of the Hat Man.
What the fuck? The Hat Man, the shadow, the shadow beings, the shadow people.
Is this okay? Well, if you said shadowed people, I know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, sure, but imagine Eddie Valiant from Roger Rabbit is a shadow person.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay. Sorry, continue.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
What's that, Mike?
I was going to say, who was I read a celebrity talking about, like a celebrity quote about the Hat Man.
Yeah, I don't remember who that was. Like, Gage was talking about it, I think.
Fucking add it to the list.
There we go. That's the next big seeing, is everyone seeing the Hat Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget Slender Man, forget Siren Head, now it's the Hat Man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quote from a piece published in The Atlantic here. The piece is titled "The Trippy State Between Wakefulness and Sleep," and it's by Von Bell. So I'm just going to quote here. Quote, "There is a brief time between waking and sleep when reality begins to warp. Rigid conscious thought starts to dissolve into gently lapping waves of early stage dreaming, and the world becomes a little more hallucinatory. Your thoughts a little more untethered. Known as the hypnagogic state, it has received only erratic attention from researchers over the years, but a recent series of studies have renewed interest in this twilight period, with the hopes it can reveal something fundamental about the consciousness itself." Which, I'll be honest, this makes a hell of a lot of sense here. I don't want to be overly skeptical, but this theory that like a lot of this was a hypnagogic episode feels likely to me. That's not to say that this state may not also be in conjunction with some sort of visitor encounter either, though.
Sure. Now, I am going to bring up the fact that you know what? We'll go into that in a minute.
Okay, but Mike, how do you feel about the hypnagogic state theory here?
I mean, I guess.
Because I've got something for the wife and kid, for Anne and Andrew.
But
Revelation.
But there's also the think about the time period. This was
85.
Yeah.
86.
Yeah.
Think about the cocaine.
A lot of drugs.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say there's
cocaine and or LSD.
Uppers, downers, bennies, dexies.
Well, okay, so Mike, I guess I'm going to put this question out there for you. How you're having a hard time being the skeptic here because again, it's a compelling narrative. I would argue it's a very compelling story.
It's not so much that he's having trouble being a skeptic. It's he doesn't want to come off sounding like an asshole.
Okay,
right?
But let's take this in the opposite direction. How do you feel like there is an authenticity to this?
I don't know.
Which is interesting from you.
I don't know. I don't know enough, I guess.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I don't think it doesn't sound like he's played into it enough to be a, what you call it?
Personality?
No. To become rich and famous, to parlay into some kind of, success.
I mean, after Communion came out, it pretty much fucking killed his career for a long while.
So it's not that. I guess I wouldn't does not seem like he's lying about it. But I don't know.
It's interesting because he comes off as very genuine with a lot of this.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think you and I have talked about this, Kevin, as being one of the big three.
Yeah,
and
this is part of the holy trinity of abduction experiences.
Right, and the reason they're the big three is because they feel the most authentic and they feel the most okay, yeah, I can believe that. I'm going to put myself out there, I believe in the Betty and Barney Hill thing. I believe it.
I kind of do, but I've got some theories about that too.
But even if I have doubts on the Whitley Strieber thing, there's still just so much to where it's yes, I can buy that this is an experience that he had that I'm probably never going to get a satisfactory answer for.
Yeah.
But it makes the world feel a little more interesting to me.
Sure. Now, you had something you wanted to talk about that throws some credibility in. Lack of credibility?
Well, I don't even know if it's a lack of credibility because, again, we're dealing with this idea of memory. And I had mentioned earlier that people can convince themselves of something and it becomes an indelible part of their personality. Right. So we're going to do a little history detour here. This isn't going to be too long. Yeah. But yeah, we should talk about the Whitman Massacre of 1966 in the context of Communion.
Yeah, you know about this, Mike. This is the one where the man went up in the bell tower with the rifles in Texas. Now, Strieber's from Texas. So...
And it does raise a little bit of a, I'm going to say a substantial credibility issue.
And can I also throw in that every time you say Whitman Massacre, I think about a box of Whitman samplers, but the best ones, so they call
fucking
it the
massacre in that box.
The Whitman Massacre. I went to town on that shit.
You have diabetes, Kevin, so any Whitman would be a massacre.
That's really true.
So, in Communion, Whitley Strieber mentions telling multiple people that he witnessed the mass shooting at the University of Texas in Austin on August 1st, 1966, as perpetrated by Charles Whitman. They had made a movie adaptation of this with Boris Karloff, I believe, as this, it was inspired by it. It was a Roger Corman thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like it's one of like Boris Karloff's like later roles, but it's really good.
Oh my God. I'm just picturing Boris Karloff up there dressed like Dale from fucking King of the Hill.
Right? So I have a couple of corroborating sources on this issue that I'm going to talk about. It's all linked in the document, but I'm just going to refer to Wikipedia here as it's a very succinct summary of the issue.
Sure.
But yeah, you'll see my notes. You'll see my links in the show notes. I have at least 3 different articles. So the issue is that for years, Strieber mentioned a very detailed account about his experience of witnessing the massacre. In the context of communion, this is used as an example of screened memories, as in something he was convinced was real, but doesn't line up with the facts. Now, it's a weird situation because he had done interviews prior to communion mentioning his view of the event in explicit detail, only to decide in communion that it must not have happened. And this is after the hypnosis and everything like that.
Right.
And then later on, when he did his book Transformation, he decided it happened again. Again, though, many of the details do not line up. There was no instance of a child on a tricycle at the scene. And also, like, you know, he was in the area, like in the sense he was in greater Austin or Texas at the time, but he was not there at the university.
Right.
So I don't want to really dwell on this too much because, again, like as we've seen, memory is a really weird thing.
Maybe he just saw a lot of like coverage of it.
You see, that's what I'm
kinda,
thinking.
like,
that's exactly it.
Imprinted itself on him.
Right. Because
Yeah.
I have these memories of being at a parking garage in Vicksburg with my sister, seeing R2-D2 and C-3PO at a big public appearance for Empire. That never happened.
But it feels so real to you, right?
I can feel the coldness of the air. I can feel the discomfort of wearing the clothes, but I know it didn't happen because that event never took place.
So the reason I wanted to bring this up, number one, you know, because I want to be as objective as possible.
Sure.
Like, as fascinating as I find this story to be, I want to be objective as possible. But also, like, this is a great example of how memory can be so authentic to you that it becomes a reality. And you know, we haven't dove into magic yet as a topic.
Yeah.
But I think this is a lot in line with magical thinking.
Right.
Again, like writing reality, manifesting your will. I think so. Like, as far as how it explains, like, for example, the trauma and the injury from the encounter, I don't know how to answer that, but people have been able to do strange things to their bodies. Again, like, and this is probably like a controversial take, but it could be something like it may have been a manifested issue or something. Again, I don't know, but I did want to bring this up because, again, yeah, like, this is a thing that we're pretty sure did not happen to him here. This being there at the site of this mass shooting.
Yeah, no, that's I really don't think he was there because a lot of reasons.
But it feels so real to him.
Sure. And I've got a theory about the wife and kid, Mike. Can I throw that out there to you? Which I feel weird, like, helping you.
So I guess first I'm going to say, well, maybe it just could point to maybe he's just don't want to not really go away, kitty. Not really but influenceable, like very, what's the word I'm looking
for? Suggestible.
Yes.
Not suggestive. That would be him in a negligee.
No.
Well, and the other thing we need to also take into account is he is a fiction author as well.
He's also a writer, so
very
he definitely has
creative.
an imagination.
Oh, yeah, no,
So
certainly.
maybe he convinced himself.
See, I think he mentioned having vague recollections of the hills. All right? So I'm wondering if that's stuck in the back of his head for like 20 years. But the other thing is, All right, let's go with Anne Strieber for a second. From everything I've read about her and her interactions with Whitley and how supportive she was, I kind of feel like she saw a way to cash in on this, like them to cash in on it without coming out and saying, Whitley, we got to milk this shit.
There is a yes and quality
There
to
is. Because, like, her recollections of the abduction are extremely vague, like, tailor-made to dovetail into his.
Especially compared to Andrew's recollections, which have that more kind of like tactile weirdness that makes sense for like an encounter.
Yes. Andrew, I don't know, because, abductions tend to run in families a lot with these things. So if there was an abduction, yeah, sure, maybe it's happening to Andrew. So I'm not willing to put that out, but I do, and he did end up working for the Communion Foundation with Whitley. And I believe he actually still works for Unknown Country in Dreamland. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. But from the little bit I've been able to gather, he has worked with his father on this stuff. So he is not out of it. He got his hands dirty. And his wife, like I said, she was a smart lady. How about that? We say that. So
not to cast aspersions on her or accuse her of anything.
Annie Strieber, from everything I've ever heard, was an amazing woman, a good friend, and a lovely wife, and stuck with him. She could have easily divorced him and been like, "Yeah, we're done."
And this is a tough conversation. Like, it's, again, there's so much that's like in favor of this being a thing that happened, but then there's a lot of stuff where you look at it and it's like, well, this is an issue.
Yeah. And I've got my own opinions on what happened, and we're not going to go into that right now. Because we're running up on our good episode limit. What I'm going to say is that it's one of the most compelling abduction stories I've ever read.
And I also want to throw out there that, like, again, like Betty and Barney Hill, through like the Reader's Digest publications of all that stuff, like that was a huge thing for contactee experiences, and it started a wave of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely changed the dynamic between humans and aliens in the public consciousness.
But I think Communion did even more than that. I think Communion is the bigger, especially combined with like mass media and that sort of thing. Whitley Strieber is able to run because Betty and Barney Hill kicked the ball.
Right.
So, again, like this, the impact of Communion, I think, is much bigger than Betty and Barney Hill, but that's just because it opened up the territory for Communion.
Definitely. I completely agree. Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry if you felt like you couldn't really throw in on that because of that. It's a tough one. Just that. The thing is, it's like, okay, yeah, no, this could all be complete bullshit, and then I hear that regression tape, I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that really gets me is his reaction. That is a gut reaction to something. Now, did he get taken by visitors and have medical experiments done? Maybe. Did he go to the bathroom, miss the toilet, and sit on the plunger?
Oof.
Ouch.
I've thought of that. Like, I've almost done that. I've wondered, am I going to wake up tomorrow thinking the little gray men came and got me?
And why is this traffic cone in the shower? I told you about this.
God damn it.
Maybe he wanted to try butt stuff and
he
didn't like it.
That's the Henry Zabrowski theory, is that he got taken in the woods and had some man's affection forced on him.
Well, I meant like he was like, I'm going. Or maybe, his wife was like, we're going to try this. And he's like, okay. He's like, ow, no, stop.
Ow, quit it. Why are you not quitting it? Oh, God.
I don't know. My advice to that is
grin and bear it, man.
Use more lube.
Yeah.
Speculation overruled.
Yep.
Yep.
So, Yeah, it's a really confusing case because of just the solidness of a lot of it. But, like, again, it's up to you to decide. And, maybe it was ultra terrestrials from the super spectrum. I don't know.
I just hear Mike kind of groaning in the background.
Yeah, was that your mouse wheel or was that your teeth grinding?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody drink.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So that's Whitley Strieber, everyone. I want to thank you for listening and sticking with us. This was a hell of an episode to do. Next week, we're going to be back with Weekend Weird, which will be substantially more lighthearted. David, you had something to say about the Weekend Weird, didn't you?
Yes, actually, we're going to be doing a live recording of it on the Discord, as in people who are a part of the Discord will be able to pop in and listen and hear how the sausage is made, when we shove the pig in the grinder and everything like that.
A lot of screaming.
Yeah, a lot of screaming. If you listen to our episodes, I gotta say they're pretty polished, but, you're missing, like, the 40 minutes of just us yelling at each other.
Right, and warming up and talking about stupid shit. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna be doing that, and we're field testing here, and then the idea is I think we want to be able to make this kind of like a thing for the patrons. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, that's kind of the plan, and we would love for you to join us. Again, you can go to discord.supernatpod.rocks and join our Discord. You can find everything else at supernatpod.rocks, including our Patreon and our blog, which will begin updating again soon, and various stuff like that there. We really appreciate everyone that's been listening over the last 2 years. I mean, like, this has been amazing. And we're nowhere near done. David, how many topics did you say you think we've got on the topic list?
So I counted around 50 because I know a couple of them, especially the ones that I'm attached to, are going to be series.
Right.
Because I cannot constrain myself. But yeah, I think we have some fun ideas down if we want to, like, give away a couple of things we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we want to talk about underground base conspiracies like the Denver airport. One geared specifically to Mike. I want to talk about famous skeptics like Penn Jillette and the amazing Randy. I would love for Mike to throw in on that one.
I'm going to have a whole line of magical theory episodes, because we haven't really gotten too far into that.
Yeah, that's because I hate magic.
It's so esoteric and dense, which is the problem.
Yeah, Mike, you want to see somebody get on your side? I'm there, buddy. We'll be there in the trenches.
It's going to be me by myself on that one, but
fucked me, old beauty.
I do have. I'm going to handle a couple different episodes on witchcraft. Like, we're going to talk about the Malleus Maleficarum.
The Hammer of Witches.
I have a collection of witchcraft trial narratives that we can get into.
You're going to talk about Tituba?
Yes, yeah. Tituba is going to be one that we're going to talk about. Yeah, and then I also have my insane theory that I just kind of started developing today based on going through this outline, that the War of the Worlds broadcast was, in fact, a magical ritual. Maybe not an intended one, but a magical ritual.
My eyes are pointing in two different directions after hearing that. But still, I'm excited.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, no. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I don't know that I'm going to do Indrid Cold like my original plan, because after reading a big chunk of Visitors from Lanulos, fuck that story. We may do Contactees instead and involve that. So
no, I say we do Indrid Cold, and I think the plan is because you have it in the outline as all them aliens, but like I think like individual alien spotlights, because we got to talk about the Lyrans.
Well, that's what All Them Aliens is about. Is going to be the beginning of that, where we talk about all them aliens, and we go over like at least between 6 and 13 of the races that are involved with xenopolitics, Mike.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Gaeta Treaty, where Eisenhower said they could stick stuff up our butts for CDs.
We're gonna have a bunch of biography episodes. And then if you have an episode idea that you want to let us know about, or if you have a lead on a story, or you want to tell us a story, go ahead and contact us, because we want to get you all involved.
Again, contact.supernatpod.rocks, as in the things you pick up off the ground and throw at religious people coming to your door.
I was going to say, or the things that are in Kevin's head.
Yes. Full of rocks and goo. So thanks everybody for listening, guys. Thank you, Mike, David, for going through this with me. We'll have a lot of fun next week where we don't talk about something this serious.
Right. Hopefully no traumatic audio.
Oh, God, never again. Sorry about that. Warning, butt screaming.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So, anyway, we will see you guys next time. Until then, stay safe and stay frosty. Goodbye. There's a cat that was chewing on my microphone stand.
She was chewing on your knob.
She chewed on my... Ooh, that's bad.
You want to have a hypnotic regression about it?
Maybe.